Hello! Welcome to Brain Spill, the laziest show on the internet. My name is Tank, and today I was going to sing the praises of one valiant pigeon. However, I walked outside to see my car this morning and saw that an entire family of pigeons had taken a massive dump over the top of it. So, as you can imagine, I'm pretty pissed off right now. Don't know what I did to deserve this, but maybe animals just hate me. For the longest time, I have fought valiantly against the idea that pigeons are just vermin. A lot of people call them rats with wings, but I like to give them a little bit more respect than that, especially because of the huge part they've played in history and the amount they've contributed to wars and conflicts in the past. To be honest with you, the pigeon we're going to be talking about today likely has no idea what it's done, but it's valiant nonetheless. Winky the pigeon is in the spotlight today as they were involved with the saving of a bomber crew during World War II. Yes, Winky, my man, you do your thing. Winky's a girl pigeon. Who'd have thought? At the start of World War II, about 2,000 pigeon fanciers in the UK allowed their pigeons to be used for military service, and most of which were used as carrier pigeons to send messages to and from different places. Carrier pigeon use was used quite effectively, and in fact was used quite a lot in World War I, so pigeons had already earned their pedigree in this area. Why not use them again in the World War sequel? At this time in world history, however, the advancements of technology in communication had progressed quite rapidly, and there was much more frequent use of radio transmissions. However, the difficulty with relying on that is the fact that with the advancement of technology, how to intercept those messages also became more advanced. Even with the implementation of advanced Enigma encryption machines, intercepting messages was still possible, and the only real way that you could intercept a message from a carrier pigeon was to catch the bloody pigeon. So, as you can imagine, in some circumstances, it was still a very effective tool to use. And whilst we're talking about it, the classic TV show, Stop the Pigeon, was pretty damn great. It was a classic cartoon and I remember watching it as a kid. However, now that I'm a little bit more grown up, I can sort of appreciate why they probably wanted to catch the pigeon. The name of the pigeon was Yankee Doodle Pigeon, which it makes me wonder, does that mean Dick Dastardly and Muttley were actually Nazis? Who knows? I mean, if they're driving a car like this during wacky races, it does make you wonder. During the war for the British, the Royal Air Force, the Army and the Civil Defence Services, including the Home Guard, the police, the Fire Service and Bletchley Park, used almost 250,000 pigeons which carried their messages in special containers on their legs or in small pouches on their backs. So, all you really needed to do was grab your pigeon, get your message, stick it in the pouch, release the pigeon, and it would somehow make its way back to home roost, which was normally based at Mission Command, the perfect way to get intelligence from point A to point B. In order to help the pigeons out, not only was pigeon racing made illegal during the course of the war, but in addition they made a concerted effort to cull a lot of the birds of prey along the coast of Britain, meaning that pigeons could have safe passage and able to return with the much needed intelligence. In addition, rationing that was put in place during World War II was also extended to pigeons, meaning that their pigeon feed was also rationed, and as a result, meaning that man and pigeon were ever so closer. Homing pigeons were used so widely, in fact, that both the British and the Germans used them during World War II. And in particular, the British would airdrop pigeons in cages to French resistance forces so they could release the pigeons and send back vital intelligence back to Allied HQ, which was pretty inventive. There were in fact harsh repercussions if you were found harbouring a pigeon illegally, which I'm assuming the only way the Germans were able to find this is that if the pigeons had monocles and top hats, so you knew that it was a British pigeon. On the 23rd of February 1942, a pigeon named Winky was placed in a wicker basket and taken on board an RAF bomber on the way for a mission. I suppose it's nice to have a nice feathery companion with you, because who knows when you're going to need a homing pigeon when you possibly crash into the sea, but that's of course never going to happen now, is it? On board the plane was number 42 M Squadron, who set off from RAF Sombra and went off into the North Sea near Norway in order to do some surveillance. The problem, however, was on their return leg of the journey. On their way back, the crew was intercepted by enemy fire, and after taking some heavy hits, the bomber was unable to fly and crashed into the ocean. The problem with this was that the men were stranded in the icy cold waters of the North Sea, 100 miles away from home. As you can imagine, in 1942, radio communications were not quite as widespread as they are today, so even though they had radios, they couldn't possibly radio into base from where they were. So the crew only had one choice. Winky, the pigeon on board, was sent off and flown back to base as a last resort to see if they could get anybody to find where the crew were. It was a long shot, but it might just work. After flying over 120 miles, Winky made it back to home roost, and exhausted and covered in oil, her owner, George Ross, was very surprised to see her. In fact, he didn't think any of his pigeons would be coming back anytime soon. After seeing Winky in the condition she was in, he decided to immediately take Winky to the RAF base nearby and let them know that she's returned. What really impressed me with this story is the fact that George, as an experienced pigeon handler, was able to hold Winky, and just by doing that was able to tell how far she'd flown that day. And just by holding the bird was able to determine that she'd flown about 150 miles, which is insane and just makes me wonder whether this guy's Dr. Dolittle or something. More clues as to the whereabouts of the crew came by looking at the oil that was on Winky. Now, the fact that she had oil covered on her in the first place made them wonder if she had perhaps spent the night on an oil tanker, and that therefore led them to their next step. What they then had to do was contact Cross-Site Shipping Control and ask them where they had their oil tankers so they could determine possibly where she could have flown from. So, they got to work. They drew a radius and plotted coordinates as to where they believed Winky could have flown from based off the positioning of the oil tankers at the time. And using the time difference between Norway and the UK, were able to triangulate a possible position as to where the crash landing may have occurred. Pretty genius stuff. By doing this, they were able to accurately identify where the crew were, and the time between the search and rescue mission starting and when the crew were found was just 15 minutes, which is pretty amazing. Very amazing, in fact, because the crew was stuck in the icy cold waters of the North Sea for that long. And miraculously, the entire crew were safe and sound, which is more so than I can say because I struggled to get into a cold bath, let alone jumping into the sea in February. When the men returned to the base, they had a toast in Winky's honour and drank to her good health. And just to join the men on that very special occasion, I too will also have a drink in Winky's honour. Yes, I will, yes, I will. You guys should know by now is that I will find any excuse possible to have a drink on a video, and if that means celebrating the good health of a pigeon, then damn, I'm gonna do it. So, here we go. For Winky's good health. I mean, this happened like 80 years ago, and Winky was a pigeon, so she's probably not alive anymore, but regardless, to Winky's health. Hero pigeon. Yeah, you see? Don't judge a book by its cover. Pigeons do good things too. In fact, Winky, alongside two other pigeons, Tyke and White Vision, were the first animals to be awarded the now infamous Dickens Medal for their service during World War II. The People's Dispensary for Sick Animals, or the PDSA, decided to award these medals to animals that showed conspicuous gallantry and devotion to duty. Which I'm pretty sure none of these animals know what's going on, but we appreciate it nonetheless. Maria Dickin, the founder of the PDSA, was the one to actually award this to Winky, and her citation reads the following: "For delivering a message under exceptional difficulties and so contributing to the rescue of an air crew while serving with the RAF in February 1942. More than 60 animals have now been awarded this medal, including 18 dogs, 3 horses and 1 cat. However, pigeons are by far the most distinguished, with 32 medals being awarded to pigeons just between the years of 1943 and 1949. I mean, it's a nice way to show our appreciation to animals that manage to make such a difference to our lives, especially during times of conflict. However, if I was Winky, I probably wouldn't want a medal. I'd probably just want unlimited bird feed, so make it happen, guys." Elaine Pendlebury from the PDSA finds the story truly touching. She said, I find it very, very moving, really. These people would have died without this pigeon message coming through. It is very hard for us with mobile phones and emails to think about the way communication would have happened in the 1940s in wartime. It was very difficult, and the pigeons certainly saved numerous lives by flying through really dreadful situations. She went on to say, "I've been a veterinary surgeon for quite some time, but I find the ones that have won the PDSA Dickin Medal, the stories are quite inspiring. Above and beyond, really." When Winky passed, her owner, George Ross, decided that the best thing that he could do was donate Winky and the medal she was awarded to the Dundee Art Gallery, where, surprisingly, she remains to this very day. You can go to the art museum and see her for yourself, so if you're ever in that part of the world, go say hi to old Winky. Although the use of homing pigeons has diminished over the years, there is still a good collection of pigeon fanciers that use pigeons for both racing and recreational purposes. What scientists haven't quite figured out, however, is how pigeons manage to even make it from point A to point B in the first place. What scientists do know, however, is that when they do fly, they use a phenomenon called magnetoception, which I hope I've pronounced that correctly. But this allows pigeons to use altitude, location and distance to figure out how to fly home. In fact, a lot of people originally thought it was down to things like weather conditions, the sun, landmarks, but in fact, regardless of any of those, whenever a pigeon is released, they pretty much always manage to find their way home. Which again, scientists aren't 100% sure how it works. However, repeat flights of the birds following the same path finds that they're much more accurate each time. So scientists believe it's probably a mixture of both. So on the one hand, they're able to use the electromagnetic field to get home, but on the other hand, when they become familiar with a route, they're able to do it more accurately each time. So who knows really? All I do know, however, is that the pigeons managed to work their strange juju to get home, and that's all we need to know. It's kind of like a built-in sat-nav just for pigeons, really. So the next time you walk out and see your car at 6 in the morning and you see that pigeons have taken a dump all over it, maybe cut them a little bit of slack next time. If you liked the video, be sure to like and subscribe. If you want to be notified as soon as I upload my next video, be sure to hit the bell button. And if you've got any ideas as to what videos you'd like me to discuss next, let me know down in the comments below. As always, sources used in the video will be in the description. Right, pigeon-related pun. I'm sorry I couldn't think of anything more original, but there you go. I'll see you guys in the next video. Fantastic.